Welcome back to Clarify Everything, the podcast where Matt and Shane dive deep into the world of technology, artificial intelligence, and cutting edge science. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a curious thinker, or just trying to keep up with the fast-paced world of innovation, we got you covered. As always, I'm your host, Shane Kirk, and I'm joined by one Mr. Matt Barry. Tune in, subscribe, and join the conversation as we clarify everything. Drop your questions in the comments below, or email us at mattandshane@clarify-tech.com. Dang, we're getting in the rhythm now. Well, I think this is episode 8.
That was pretty good. That was pretty
Yeah.
good intro. You're sounding like
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
professional there.
Off camera, this is episode like 10 or 11 because there's been a few episodes where like we did like a precursor episode where it was just like us testing it out. There's been a few episodes where like our files got corrupted. There's been a few mishaps, but this will be published episode number 8.
I think we should
And
just eventually compile behind the scenes and it's just going to be throwing things and stuff breaking and recording not working and just random chaos.
yeah, I think random chaos for sure. I think that something's kind of cool is like we've been seeing basically just like the slowest but steadiest growth, at least on
Yes.
Spotify. And I did
Yes.
some digging into like some of our like larger episodes, and they were actually the days that we like put our show on other platforms. We got more views, and I was like, because I was like thinking about this, and I was like, why do some episodes like these two episodes from like a month and a half ago just have all these views comparatively, right?
Right.
Like we average, between like 10 and something views, and these ones are at like 20, right? And I'm like, oh, it's because we put them on Amazon podcast as well. I
Right.
was like, all right, all
Somebody else
right.
pay
Well,
attention.
yeah, someone else paid attention. But today, I think the biggest thing is we've been harping, or I shouldn't say harping, but we've been talking so much about like Doge and Elon Musk and all these things that I kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit because, frankly, as maybe the consumers may not be, but frankly, I feel like we've beaten that dead horse a little bit.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, we can't spend too much time talking about any one thing. It tech is so big and so broad, and regardless of what anybody thinks about Elon, he has a huge impact in the tech space. I mean, he does launch rocket ships. Let
That
me
is
rephrase
true.
that. He doesn't launch rocket ships. He runs a company that launches rocket ships and builds AI and does some of these other things. So all of those things are big factors in the tech space. I could sit here and bash Elon all day long, but the stuff that he's putting together is pretty cool. Rockets
Yeah,
are pretty cool. Self-driving cars
rockets
are
are
pretty cool.
sick.
It's putting Rick rolls in the brain. That's pretty cool. Like it's like
Yeah,
being able to move stuff with your arm. That's pretty cool. Or with
yeah.
your arm, being able to move a robotic arm with your brain. That's pretty cool. So there's cool stuff there, but I mean, a lot of people are doing cool stuff. So, we
A lot
shouldn't
of people
spend a
are
lot
doing
of
cool
time
stuff.
focused on one guy.
Well, so the thing at least for me, I think the thing that I was interested in, something that came across my desk was the asteroids that are coming close to Earth,
Yep.
right? And basically they said the closest one is almost 700,000 miles away, right?
Hmm.
And it's like 42 feet wide.
Right.
There's no potential of impact, anything like that. But I think that for me, I was like, all right, A, how far is 700,000 miles? Like, is that even like that close, or is it just like the closest asteroid? And B, what would even happen if a 42-foot asteroid hit the Earth? Because like in my head, I'm like, oh, like that's not like big, you know what I mean? But
That's
like
not
two,
huge.
but like the thing is if a 42-foot hit or 42-foot asteroid hit the Earth at like a couple million miles per hour. You know what I mean? It's like a bullet hitting a watermelon. I don't know. And so I just wanted to
So,
hear your thoughts on this whole asteroid thing.
so this is actually a super fun topic for me to talk about because things get really big really fast when you start talking about space. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated with space, love space. And at some point, like in my life or other people's, I'd like to go there, but it's so hard right now for us to actually go to space and like observe these things, like put a telescope up there, that we don't get as much as we want. And it's hard on the body too, as a human body. Go up there and it's like, hey, we're going to be in, 9G while we take off, and then we're in radiation and all this other crazy stuff. So it's long term, that's some of the things that we work on here at Clarify is how can we make people strong enough to withstand, the rigors of space travel. But keeping that in mind and looking up at the sky, the solar system is a mess. There's rocks everywhere. There's shit all over the place. um, and that's important because of the sun. The gravity of the sun, this immense gravitational field, it pulls all this stuff in. And then because physics, without getting into all this, it starts orbiting, starts moving around the sun.
Mhm.
because reasons, laws, science. But all those rocks have not necessarily this perfectly round, well constructed orbit. It might be a little elliptical, it might be off center, it might be, and the changes that we observe in those orbits take a really long time, much longer, lifetimes to go through some of that because they're not moving super fast, although subjectively they are, and
Right.
they're not, but they're covering immense distances, multiple astronomical units. So the asteroid belt in our solar system between Mars and Jupiter, as you start, heading out into the outer planets, we see in media and in movies, it's like this rock field with like rocks all over the place, and you're like diving around rocks and things like that. Really, the only time you're ever going to see that in space is a debris field, and it's not going to last that long because everything keeps moving in the direction that's how physics works. So when you're in the belt, we call it a belt. There's a lot of asteroids there. Most of those asteroids are 4, 5, 6, 700, 800, 900, 2 million, 3 million, 300 million kilometers apart.
Right.
So it's not like you could stand on an asteroid and like point a finger at the other. You can't even see it. It looks just like the rest of space. There's just stars everywhere. So to come to your first point about distance, how far is 700,000 kilometers? Uh, for
Miles.
all right, let's
For those
talk
of you who
miles.
speak American, it's really far. All right.
So we'll use miles for the sake of my not throwing anything.
Well, that's just what
As
NASA said. NASA said 700,000 miles.
well, it's
That's
because
like,
they do their measurements in kilometers because they're accurate, and then they translate it to miles for
yeah.
the rest of
For
America.
our few viewers who are in Scotland and Ireland, that's like 1.4 million kilometers or something like that.
Yes, yeah, generally. A kilometer is a mile is 2.2 kilometers. So it's pretty easy
Yeah.
to figure that out. If you can do basic math or have a calculator or can even talk to your little AI, Siri, Alexa, Google thing, it'll tell you what it is. So 700,000 miles in space terms is relatively close. In our terms or getting close to the Earth, it's not that much to worry about. The moon's a couple 100,000 miles away. So, 700,000 miles pretty far out there. And we have satellites right now that we use, our GPS system most notably, that's up there a good 100,000 miles, and it's
Right.
just sitting there orbiting around us, kind of part way between the Earth and the moon. So 700,000 miles out is pretty far. It's not far in interplanetary sense. Mars is 200 million miles away sometimes. Obviously
Right.
because the orbits change, it's not this constant distance. We're not locked in the same orbit. It could be on the other side of the sun, at times, which means it takes forever to get there. So we got to plan all of that. But 700,000 miles is not close by those standards. Anything that moves within a couple 100,000 miles, we get real concerned about because that's inside the orbit of the moon, and the gravity from the Earth and the moon can affect that pretty
Mhm.
pretty heavily. So it's hard to predict some of those things. You got to do some pretty big math with a lot of different variables, which is why astrophysics is such a challenging field because you're projecting all of these answers pretty far out there. But the other question that you had, 42 feet. I think this is more interesting because we're not necessarily talking just about the size.
Right.
We're talking about the science around energy. So if it's 42 feet and it's made out of standard rock, space rock stuff, so iron and nickel and various metallic materials that are pretty common in a lot of those asteroids, that's pretty dense.
Yeah.
And if it's pretty dense and it's moving at, and we can't talk about miles per hour because in and space velocity, we got to talk about miles per second. So if it's moving at 10, 15,000 miles per second, if we do that math, that's going pretty fast. That's not even a bullet. That's 150 times a bullet. It's 200 times a bullet, 500 times a bullet. So it's
Oh,
thousands of times the speed of sound. So it's
yeah.
so the energy that small 42-foot rock is carrying is far higher than a 42-foot rock.
Hmm.
So if you looked at a 42-foot rock on Earth and were like, oh, that's not that big, it's 50 feet tall, it just fell over. Like we have bulldozers that are bigger than that. Like it's
Right.
just we're driving
We
around
have
in a
lots
dump
of
truck.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. We have like your house, some houses are 40 feet tall. So that's not that big. The size multiplied by its velocity, that's where the problems start.
Mhm.
Now, our atmosphere, Earth's atmosphere, super good at slowing shit down. It's really good at it, which is why, coming back from space, things heat up because of friction of the atmosphere. It slows things down. It's dense. It's got different materials in it. We got magnetic layer. Sometimes things at shallow enough angle just bounce off of it, end
Wait,
up
wait,
going
is
back
that
into
actually why
space.
like shit burns in the atmosphere? Is because it's just friction from
Yeah,
slowing down so fast?
that's 100% what it is. See, this is the
Bruh.
moment. I love these. Change that moment. I love this.
I'm gonna
Everybody
be
should watch
honest,
this.
I had no clue why. I just like didn't really think about that, but I just assumed that there was like something up there that was lighting shit on fire. And I did
No,
not
it's
think it was
just
just
atmospheric friction.
the actual wait, so theoretically here, if I were to run really fast,
Uh-huh.
like space fast,
Yeah.
and then stop, like on a
Yep.
dime, I
Yep.
would also burn up.
If you were to run space fast in our atmosphere, you'd burn up before you were able to stop.
Damn,
And
man,
if you
friction
did
sucks,
stop,
dude. What the hell? Dude, what the hell? That's so dumb. Well,
see, everybody listening, all 42 people, this is what I have to deal with Shane on a regular basis.
well, like,
So,
okay, hear me out. Like, who out there like was inventing planets and stuff, and was like, you know what? We're gonna make it hard to get out because of the atmosphere, but we're gonna make it impossible to get back in. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, what?
so there's impossible is only one part of that. If you were to re-enter Earth's atmosphere slowly, then
Uh-huh.
you wouldn't have any friction. But
Like,
what are
how
you going to
slow
use to
though?
really slow, like jet plane slow, like 700-800 miles an hour? So it's like super
You just
slow.
have to like pinball off the asteroids that are close to Earth and slow yourself down, and then just fall to Earth.
Well, there's a common trope in science fiction that you hear
Hmm.
about all the time. The concept of using fusion or even nuclear fission as a
Hmm.
propulsion mechanism. Basically set off an atomic bomb and blast it out of the back of a rocket cone. Because that much energy would accelerate you really quickly. If you could capture that much energy and accelerate a ship, I mean, you turn everything inside to pulp, like humans would be
Right,
flat
yeah.
because you accelerate at 200 Gs or 500 Gs, depending on how much energy you put out and the variables associated with that. But if you aimed that rocket, the cone of that rocket at the surface of the Earth, and as soon as you hit the atmosphere and you lit that drive, the flame from that drive would turn the surface of the Earth to glass because it would be so hot and so big to slow this ship down with all this energy. So
Oh my
that'd be the
God.
only way to do it. You'd have to fire this rocket at this huge velocity to slow the ship down. You got to do other things to slow the ship down because we can't, as much as we want to, and we do it on a regular basis. There's certain things in nature that you're just going to lose the fight. So you gotta, and part of it is
Yeah,
re-entry into an
space and
atmosphere.
silverback gorillas. You're screwed.
It's over. You're done. Lions are lazy, but a gorilla will take your head off. But it's so the re-entry process is part of the protective shield, the envelope that covers the Earth, that keeps us safe, keeps our atmosphere in. And because that atmosphere is heavy, gravity pulls on it and it keeps it, low so it doesn't just spin off into space and all these other interesting physics concepts that most people who think the Earth is flat haven't even thought about. But in the case of an asteroid, if you had a 42-foot asteroid and it was moving at 15,000 miles per second or something like that, which is in the ballpark of orbital velocities and some of these other, fun little statistics, and it hits the atmosphere, there is a calculation you could do. And I don't know it off the top of my head. There's a calculation you could do that would determine the amount of velocity and energy that that object would have were it to make contact with the ground.
Right.
There is a point, which is why we don't worry about smaller objects, and meteor showers are fun to watch, where smaller rocks, smaller objects, when they make contact with the atmosphere, the heat and the friction ablates away that material. It basically vaporizes it in that flame that you see, and then there's nothing left. It's just dust. It just goes away, and then you keep working your way down until you're at molecules that are not heavy enough to create any additional forward momentum. So we love looking at that. We see these, beautiful meteor showers and things like, oh, this is great. It's because
Yeah,
it's little tiny
rockets blowing
rocks.
up, you know
Yeah,
what I
maybe
mean?
maybe it's a rocket, not meteor. You know,
Maybe
it.
it's SpaceX rocket just blowing up.
We thought we were done with Elon, man. I'm trying to back away from Elon.
Hey,
Your
I'm an
time around that
instigator. What
game.
can I say? I'm an
it's,
instigator.
it's it's. I mean, everybody's talking shit to me about bashing Elon, and you're like, you're the one over here talking shit about Elon. So it's in the case of a 42-foot rock, how much velocity is it going to have? And velocity differs. If this is a big lazy orbit and we're not heading toward it and there's a bunch of then maybe it's not going that fast. We don't have to worry about it. Once again, this is all relative. It's still going to be going 10, 5, 10, 15,000 miles an hour or second. So it's like it's going to be moving, by our definition. But as you start making those differences, as you start making the velocity starts building up, and you've got this is the velocity of Earth, this is the velocity of the object, and they're going to do this. That's a lot of energy. That
Mm.
rock has a lot of momentum, has a lot of kinetic energy that it's built up relative to the surface of the Earth. So the atmosphere tries to slow it down. It's going to do work. It's thicker, it's denser, it's do all these things, and the 42-foot rock's going to hit it, and it's going to slow it down. It's going to burn up its shell. It's going to get smaller. The best case scenario in a situation like that is, yeah, this 42-foot rock burns up completely, and then the energy from it burning up might explode a few thousand feet or 10,000 feet above the surface, which, according to the theory, we don't have proof of it yet. The Tunguska blast in 1908 was exactly that. It was an air burst. It was a
Yeah.
meteor that was flying over and it blew up and flattened trees, stuff like that. Didn't
Mm.
actually hit the ground, but it was because it was carrying all of that energy as it moved
Right.
through the atmosphere.
But wasn't that one theorized to be like miles wide though?
Oh yeah, it was really big when it
Yeah.
made contact. But
42
there's
foot ain't
no,
nothing.
you're not gonna, that's not gonna be a big deal. But when you start getting up into some bigger sizes. When you start getting up into, 50, 100, 200 meters, so 600 feet, you start getting up into something that big. Not only is it carrying energy, but the atmosphere is just not going to be able to slow it down. Like it's going to vaporize the shell. It's going to heat up, but it's still going to have too much energy, too much momentum, and too much mass as it hits the atmosphere. It's going to hit the ground. And when it hits the ground, it's like you were talking about earlier with your running as fast as space speeds and then stopping. Something's got to stop it. And then energy goes somewhere. So it goes
Right.
into the crust, it explodes outward, it creates these giant shock waves. The crazy, meteor slash asteroid slash meteorite, because depending on which news cycle you were looking at, was the one that was coming that was supposed to hit us in the 2032 and then a 3% chance and a 1% and then a 0%. Kept moving around all over those percentages, which is normal because we have to calculate for tumble and direction and some other
Yeah.
things as we're trying to do that math. That would have hit the ground with the equivalent of between 6 and 8 megatons of TNT. To put that in perspective, the Hiroshima explosion was one. So I mean,
Yeah.
it would have vaporized a city. It would have, made a giant dent in a continent.
Yeah.
Um,
It would have vaporized a country if it was small enough.
If it was a small enough country, yeah. I mean, it's 8 megaton blast. You're talking about 10, 15,000 degrees Fahrenheit for everything within 6 or 8 kilometers, 10 kilometers. So
Yeah.
it's more than a nuclear device. It is a big hit. Is it an extinction level event? No, not really.
Mhm.
It will alter the atmosphere. It will do things like that, but it's not going to wipe out life on the planet. A bigger rock, you
Yeah.
get up into the mile
Mm. Yeah.
1,000 meters cross, yeah, we better be moving.
Ooh.
And there's not a ton we in our current technological level of capability can do to stop something that big. Because
Right.
it will already have had energy and movement and speed. And as much as I want to be able to call Bruce Willis and have him go up there and drill a hole in it and put a nuclear device in it and solve that problem, the feasibility of something like that at that range is just not enough. It's too
Right.
fast. It's moving too quickly. And we love being able to talk about, the velocity, but the amount of time it took to get there, you have like 3 minutes to drill a hole before it would already be in impact range. So you'd have to
Mm.
fire it up there 2 years in advance. And by the time you got to it, you had to do all the work and then get out of the way and then not have it spit you off. But the one thing that the Armageddon movie, which I'm referencing, did really well is that rock in space doesn't look anything like rock on Earth.
Right.
Because rock on Earth, it's like a wind and rain and all these things beating up. Rock in space will kill you. It's like knife edge rocks and pieces of metal and things sticking out. It looks like a iron snowball that's ready to chew you up. And we look at it from far away. It's like, oh, look, it's smooth and it's round. And you get close, and those edges are like knives. So it's like
All
it's
I
not
know
what
is
we
Bruce Willis could figure it out.
probably
I mean, I mean,
Probably. He
is
probably
it
solved that
highly
problem.
improbable or highly unlikely that we actually live through this event? I don't know. Bruce Willis got us though. That's all I know.
Right. He can square us away. So are we worried about rocks hitting us? Yeah, we probably should be. That's why we have the near Earth object observatories and things like that. There's a lot of rocks out there. There's a lot of shit flying around in space. The sun is just pulling it all in. Whatever it runs into, it says, hey, you should hang out too. And it just keeps pulling it in. And most of those rocks at some point over the next few millennia are going to bash into the sun and disappear. That's what they're going to do. But once they achieve a stable orbit, I don't know, maybe that orbit runs into us.
Right.
So we gotta keep figuring that out. 42-foot rock, not too worried about it. 1,000-foot
Honestly,
rock, yeah, let's go to
oh,
Mars.
yeah.
So it's
Honestly, like this might be a hot take, but I feel like if there's like a rock that big that could just like destroy Earth, I don't even want to know about it. Like I don't want NASA to publish anything. I want those nerds down there just to keep it to themselves, man. Like I want to just be chilling right here doing the podcast and then just
just
goes
stop
by.
chilling.
Yeah,
Just
just
stop chilling.
I mean, because like it's one of those things where it's like you can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? It's like
There's the odds of a super giant rock hitting us and like fundamentally eradicating the possibility of sustaining life on Earth are pretty high. Those rocks are relatively easy to spot, especially from pretty far out because they're just big. They're big. They're
yeah,
the size of planets. They're not quite that big, size of moons. And they're pretty stable. They got pretty stable orbits. They've been sitting there for a long time. So if they haven't hit us yet, they're probably not
yeah,
going to hit us. It's probably,
yeah.
but the big question is more like the medium-sized rock, like the dinosaur killer rock.
Hmm.
Like that rock, that's hard to see. That's like we
Yeah,
can't spot it because it's going to be big, it's going to be fast, it's going to be coming out of some weird space, and it's going to hit the ground. It's going to dig the Gulf of Mexico, and it's going to drop the temperature of the Earth 15 degrees for 5,000 years, and all kinds of dust, all kinds of other crazy stuff. Not to mention the fact that shock waves and 500-meter tall tidal waves are going to be flying everywhere. So
yeah,
however, sci-fi aside, could you survive something like that? The answer is yes. You could live through it, and subsistence farming and paying attention to environmental changes and stuff like that. Traditionally, humans are pretty damn tough. Like
mm,
if we stop sitting around on our asses and talking about how much we hate everything and get out there and actually do stuff, we're pretty hardy. We can survive quite a bit. So could we survive a big ass rock that like wiped out the dinosaurs? I don't know, man. That's a long shot. But hell, life survived before. That didn't wipe out
yeah.
everything on the
It's
planet.
true.
So, and they didn't have our technology. You learn to filter air a little bit. You learn to filter water a little bit. Some of the things that we're currently doing.
We're all gonna
There's a
mask up
thought.
again.
Yeah, there's a thought problem that I heard years ago that I really like, and I kind of have read it as a meme and a couple other things about that. And it's you ask a person, you're like, all right, we're going to explore space. And like, they're super stoked. They want to explore space. It's real dangerous. A lot of crazy. Get hit by rocks. It's like run out of air and all this other stuff where it's going to be a bitchin' spaceship. We're going to explore space. It's like, all right, but we got to put a lot of different kinds of things on that ship. You're going to be in close quarters. You're going to live with people you don't like. People are going to argue. It's going to be a long time. It's going to be a real long time to explore all of space. And most people will say, oh man, I want to explore space. That sounds amazing. I really love it. I can deal with that. I can figure out how to recycle water better. I can figure out how to do this. I can figure out how to do that. This is great. So, all right, great. The name of your spaceship is Earth. And then everybody changes their mind.
Yeah.
Like, wait, I don't want to be around people. Wait, I don't want to learn how to recycle. Wait, I don't want to optimize energy usage. Wait, I don't want to do any of this. It's like the concept of being like this, explorer and like doing all these, like everybody jumps all over that. But it's like, wait, this is my day to day. Oh, yeah, it's your day to day. This is our rocket ship. I
Yeah.
got to figure out how to solve these problems. That doesn't mean you can everything or you go to extremes or any of that other stuff. I mean, if you're on a spaceship, you got to figure out how to get further. So you
Hmm.
can't just, stop firing the engines because they make waste. You just figure out how to deal with that waste a little bit better. Don't fire the engines as much. Be smart about it. So that same concept, how could we survive in the event that a giant rock smash into Earth and all these things happen? Well, like they used to say with the Bionic Man, we got the technology.
Right.
Let's start using it.
Dang. I mean, but the thing is I feel like maybe with that as thought now or a thought experiment. Maybe I'm just too stupid, but most spaceships don't have 8 billion cooks in the kitchen.
No, there's a point to that. There's a point, and that's a solid point. But at the same time, I can counter each of these arguments with that same thought experiment. Like it. Okay, so you don't have 8 billion cooks in the kitchen, but if you got 100 million people on the ship
Hmm.
and only 15 people that are in charge, those 15 people should represent some of those
Right.
100 million people on the ship so that you can actually figure out, well, what if you have a group of people that's really small and is causing problems? Well, don't even talk to me about the ethics of it. Just figure out what is the best for the ship. Oh, we should kill
Yeah.
them all and jettison them into space. All right, well, you're a monster, but that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean
Oh my
so.
goodness.
So it's you can scale it up or scale it down. And I'm not saying that it's a solution to anything, but it is an interesting thought problem to look at. When you're thinking, this is our ship, and if we fuck it up, we die. So let's not, because the ship doesn't care. The ship's going to keep
Yeah.
going. The ship's going to keep doing this. It's going to keep going around the sun. We're just going to be the ones that are dead. So we gotta sort out the best way to do that. And I don't ever want to beat like the ecology drum, like I or the green drum or whatever it is. Like I'm a big tech fan. You know that we run a tech company, so it's not. But I also think that there's sustainable and smart ways to do things. And I don't mean like the buzzword sustainable. Like I like
Mhm.
sustainable energy. It's why you and I've talked about it before. It's why I like nuclear power so
Yeah.
much. It's like, let's put the sun in a can. Like that is the way you make juice. Like let's not, I'm not, no, don't want to dig anything up or put a big panel on my roof. I want a beer can that'll give me 40 gigawatts a day for the rest of existence. Let's figure out how to do that.
Okay.
So,
So I think sustainability is great. And I think that, I think everyone thinks about this green energy. And when they think about that, something that kind of pops in people's minds is the idea of like autonomous vehicles. All right. And before I like dive into the actual headline that I want to talk
still
about,
gonna bash Musk again, aren't you?
there is a funny headline. I'm not reading the article just because why not? But it says Tesla on autopilot hits wall, demolishes mannequin in viral video. And this is from PC Magazine. And we had talked about how like Teslas used to just hit clowns.
Yep, the birthday clowns.
Yeah, and now mannequins are just up next. But
Right. It's evolved. Now it's just mannequins.
the thing I did actually want to like pick your brain on was the fact that GM and Nvidia are partnering
Yep.
to produce autonomous vehicles.
Yep.
And so, like on the topic of sustainability, I guess, without nuclear power, are autonomous vehicles even sustainable? Are they
Hmm.
green? The thing is, for me, like, or what I shouldn't even say for me, for what a lot of people say, or a lot of people argue against it is like, okay, you have these, EVs, all these things, but if it's not nuclear powered, it's still burning like coal electricity or like natural gas electricity, all these
Yeah.
things. And it's like, a lot of people say, oh, it's more efficient, these types of things. Like, okay, like, yes, it might be running on coal power, but it's less coal power. The thing though is my thing, or my personal question, I guess, is what do you think is the overall positive or net positive or autonomous vehicles when you have things like, Tesla superchargers going into like rural counties, blacking out the grid? Humboldt County in California, they essentially stopped giving out housing permits because the grid can't handle anything more. And a
Hmm.
lot of that has to do, or maybe not a lot of it has to do with, but what a lot of people think has to do with that is them putting in superchargers everywhere, things like that. So it's like, maybe it's more efficient, from like electrical to electrical like usage, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, maybe we're using less electricity on these things, but is it more efficient for, sustainability or in general across like sectors, right? So whether it's housing or, just in general, do you think it's more sustainable for EVs?
So before I answer the question, I think we need to talk about sustainable by the scientific definition. So sustainability would imply or should imply that the system can replenish itself.
Right.
Every system we have on Earth at every scale will eventually replenish itself. It's just a question of how well it'll do. Even the coal cycle
Yeah.
replenishes itself. The carbon's deposited in the atmosphere. Eventually, it makes its way back down into the ground, whether that's through carbon, storage, abatement, reabsorption. It's in the ocean. And then that carbon ends up being stored somewhere, and then it can be reused as part of the cycle. The Earth is a closed system, and we don't lose coal into space. We don't lose water into space. We're in a water shortage. No, we're not. We're in a water is in the wrong place.
Yeah,
It's
we're in a
not,
giant terrarium. It's a closed
yeah,
system. Everything is still here. It just might not look right.
yeah, it might not be in the form that we need it, in the place that we need it in order for it to be the way we need it. So I think the conversation around self-driving and autonomous vehicles and their energy usage shouldn't necessarily be centered at first on the type of energy they're using for propulsion, whether it's oil and gas or electricity, because ultimately it all comes from the same place, which is the sun. The sun creates the carbon cycle, the sun powers the environment. All these things happen in the same way. So if we work as far backwards as we can, plants are absorbing solar energy and becoming plants, and they get eaten by cows, and then cows become hamburgers. It's the whole
Right.
process. So the vehicles, we should think more in terms of efficiency of the vehicle, regardless of the energy source that is being used. And I know every single person that has ever driven a car in the United States of America will understand what I am about to say, in that you've got the people that come up to the stoplight or the stop sign and then stomp on the gas pedal and go real fast and then slow down real hard right before the next stoplight that's 1 block away, or they speed up and slow down between 10 and 15 miles per hour on the freeway consistently over and over and over again. Both of those methods of driving are so radically energy inefficient that they are documented in using more fuel, whether that's electricity or gasoline. It doesn't make any difference. They're using more fuel on a pretty regular basis because of bad habits that the drivers have. An autonomous vehicle does not do that. Even right now, you put your EV on self-drive with the parking distance or the cruise distance on the freeway, and it gradually speeds up and gradually slows down, and it's still managing to do that in the most efficient way possible, whether that's a gas engine or an electric engine. And we've seen, I said EV, but we've seen gas engine vehicles that have that same feature, and
Right.
they've had it for quite some time. So the efficiency that an autonomous vehicle generates is far higher than a human, orders of magnitude higher, because it's designed to conserve that energy, whether it's gasoline or electricity. It's designed to drive the most efficient way possible, which under most circumstances, not all, is the safest way possible, because you're not accelerating or slowing down erratically or without prediction. You know where you're going, you change lanes when you're supposed to. All of these little things that we don't do as humans because we're either sitting here on our phones or eating a burrito or putting our makeup on or doing something stupid while we're driving. Or we're just not paying attention enough because there's so much going on. We don't want to hit the car in front of us because they're eating a burrito or drinking a Starbucks or putting their makeup on,
Mhm.
and they change lanes without paying attention. And then that creates this giant ripple effect that causes all kinds of problems. Or there was an accident, or there's a deer, or any of these other crazy things that are happening. This is a place where machine efficiency is so much higher than ours because it can just pull all this data in as it's happening and make better choices as it's doing that. Is it a better driver? Better is subjective. It's gonna, the trolley problem. If a person was in front of it, is it gonna go around and kill you? Like there's all these different
Mhm.
questions, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Is it more efficient? For the most part, better than 80% of the time? Probably, yeah. And by being more efficient, with GM partnering with NVIDIA, they're going to use some of the more advanced artificial intelligence features that NVIDIA has, not just their object recognition with a camera, but LiDAR, which
Right.
is so much better, but still requires significant energy and computing power within the vehicle to be able to predict all of those things and make the movement. So as you continue to do that, the vehicle stays efficient. It gets more efficient. It drives better. It doesn't speed up or slow down as quickly. It's able to brake sooner. It's able to do all of these things that you couldn't do as a person, or you could do, but would take longer and would then have less efficiency. So whether it's an EV or it's an internal combustion vehicle, it's still going to be more efficient as a self-driver. And then as for us, or as an automated driver, and then for us as humans, if it can do that better, that gives us more time to do those things which are currently detracting attention. We can respond to our phone or eat that burrito. You can tell I want a burrito, or put your makeup on, or drink your Starbucks, or whatever you need to do. Deal with your kids in the car because the car can do the work. So anything we can find that will give us back more time then generates efficiency on our part. And if we can make that device more efficient, then it also feeds into the sustainability cycle, and keeps these long tail sustainable components like oil and gas from running out as quickly as they are right now and having to replenish that cycle.
Right.
So the short answer, the TLDR is yes.
Yeah.
So automated driving is more efficient than humans driving almost in every metric.
I think the thing for me, I should say, is, and I'm sure there's other people out there. I feel like that autonomous vehicle thing is just, it feels bad. You know what I mean? Like, it just like, there's so, like, okay, maybe it was me being raised the way I was, on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, being a skeptic, but just, it's the same problem as with like OnStar, like the ability for someone just to like turn off your car. And like, I feel like the car for so long for so many people has symbolized like freedom. Like you're like 16, 17, you get your first car. It's like, all right, I can drive to my friend's house now. It's like, all right, I'm on my own. Like I can do my thing now. I feel like for me, at least, when I think of autonomous vehicles, I don't know. Like it just, I understand it's more efficient. I understand that it's safer. And I understand that, like, okay, it's probably better for the environment in some way. I'm not a scientist. But it's like, when I just look at it and I get in it, it feels like Terminator, or it feels like, some Orwellian CEO somewhere could just turn my car off, or like, could just turn, like, do whatever they want to me for some reason. And I think that it has to do a lot with the fact that you are in, like whether you feel it or not, you are in danger when you are driving, right? Like you
Mhm.
are like in a constant state of potential danger, right? You're going 60 to 100 miles an hour wherever you are, and you're driving a 5,000 pound brick at the speed. Like we were just talking about energy. Like
Yep.
it's like, or like the thing is I knew a guy who was like talking about like riding his bicycle on like the freeway or on the road. And he's like, if one of these things just touches me, I die. You know what I mean? So it's like you're in
Yeah.
this constant state of potential danger, and now you have zero control, right? And it might be safer, or it is safer, more efficient, but the idea that you're releasing that control of your own freedom and your own safety to this machine that you don't know how it works, you don't know what it does, how it comes to the conclusions it does, it feels scary,
Well,
maybe.
and I don't think you're wrong. I don't
Mm,
think feeling that is incorrect because you are giving up control. I would not counter, I
mm,
would increase on that we've already done that to a
right.
degree, and we're doing it more. This is just one of the noticeable shifts. So the term, the concept, the principle of fly-by-wire,
Yeah,
you've heard this, everybody. So let's explain it really quickly. It
right.
originally started in aircraft, where military aircraft would require gears and hydraulics to move the flaps and the ailerons and the rudder and move the aircraft around, and that took a significant amount of strength. So
Hmm.
pilots would be exhausted after periods of dogfighting. So then they moved to hydraulics, to make it a little bit easier, but you ran the risk of hydraulic fluid, you're carrying more weight. Now we've moved to fly-by-wire, moved to servos and a variety of other mechanisms that piezoelectrically move the flaps very quickly without a lot of energy, and you're hardly moving the control stick as you move it around. That wire, though, runs through a computer.
Hmm.
So it's not like it's a direct switch. Like you push the switch and it does the thing. A lot of them are direct, but as they get better, it's got to be a computer. Otherwise, it gets too heavy, and you got one wire with a contact switch, and it's not quite fly-by-wire. Yada yada yada. So that same concept has trickled down to all kinds of other things. Most commercial aircraft are fly-by-wire at this point. So you're sitting in an airplane when you travel that is reliant on a computer. You're sitting in a car. A lot of newer cars are fly-by-wire. The throttles are all digital. Even the
Hmm.
steering wheel to a degree is all digital. So that your inputs then register with a device, a computer of some type, that reads that input and then translates it to your power steering rack and like moves things around. So if that computer failed in that circumstance, if power went out, if it didn't work, if something quit, what would happen to your vehicle? What would happen right now? If you were just driving down the road and that computer stopped working, what would happen? Now, there are, vehicles out there that don't have that, but almost every vehicle I know of has power brakes. So if the hydraulic system fails, then you try and step on those brakes. Good luck to anybody who's ever, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when there weren't power brakes and you use both feet, like
You're on
you're
the
standing
steering
up,
wheel and pushing
right,
yourself down on that
right, trying to get those
thing.
brakes to work. So it's the systems. that we
Mm,
rely on to improve human capability have been around for a long time. Now, this is the first system that has displayed intelligence. It's
right.
been able to make choices. It's been able to do things that don't require our input. And that tends to be where the scary part steps in because you feel like you're not in control. There is another entity of some type that is in control of what you are doing, and you can't necessarily control it. So you're handing over the reins to a more advanced computer system to be able to do most of that work for you. And that scares a lot of people. And it should, because a lot of those systems aren't very well designed. I'm I'm in tech. We work in tech. We build technology. So I'm bashing myself in saying this. I'm not, this isn't like, oh, I'm better than everybody else. Everything is the same. Building a car like you're building software is inherently a mistake. Because if you look at software right now that everybody's built, how many times has a complex piece of software been launched and it's had so many bugs that nobody even wants to use it? It doesn't work the way anybody intended. It gets hacked, stops working the way it's supposed to. Somebody breaks it. It's got back doors in it. All kinds of developer crap happen. So now we're saying, let's put this in a car. We have not proven that we can build software good on the first shot, and we want to launch a car with that. That just makes the testing cycle even longer. Like
Mm,
we should be testing this for months, if not years, before we actually put this out as an autonomous device. And during that period of time, there should be some pretty excessive transparency.
right.
All right, hey, we just designed this self-driving system. It's going to get full self-driving. It's going to be great. Here's a test. And the first thing it does is you run over a birthday clown. And you're like, okay,
Or a mannequin.
right, or a mannequin. Okay. So this is only our first test. This thing totally sucks right now, but we want you to see it so that when we show the next test, it looks pretty good. And then the next one, the birthday clown and the mannequin are right there, and it dodges both and it hits a stuffed raccoon. And you're like, okay, it's progress. It didn't hit the birthday clown, it didn't hit the mannequin, it hit the
Oh
stuffed
my God.
raccoon. So that incremental progress, even if it's in simulation, like that honesty, I think would then earn your trust.
Yeah.
Because you'd be able to watch some YouTube videos and be like, man, phase one, this thing absolutely hit the birthday clown. Like it killed the mannequin in like 3 seconds. And now we're 6 months in and we've seen this really cool, like it's available to kind of navigate around the parking lot and do this stuff.
Mm,
That is, in Tesla's defense, that's some of what Tesla used to do, and they haven't done it in a while. And the problem that I've always had with Tesla, and in turn Elon, but mostly with Tesla, is that the promise is being failed to be kept.
right.
Oh, we're going to have full self-driving in 6 months. Well, show us the demos. What's it look like? Let's
Mm,
see it happen. Not in a rigged thing on the stage, and not some YouTube video on from a fanboy. Like, show us something that's hardcore, like a test against head to head against some other tools in like a Edmunds or a Car and Driver,
mm,
so that this kind of independent publication can just put it through the ringer. And if your product is good enough that somebody who doesn't like you
mm,
can test it and not find very many faults other than that they don't like you, that is a testament to how good that product is. And if it's something that is in a space that's supposed to be so careful as driving a vehicle to earn trust, put it out to people that hate your guts,
yeah.
have them
It's
test it.
true.
Because if they come back and they say, man, I hate this dude, but this car is really good. I can't find fault with it because if you end up as that journalist or as that testing group finding all these faults with the car, and then another independent group does not, and it keeps going like that, then eventually your credibility gets shot to hell and nobody wants to listen to you anyway. But if you're the journalist or the group that says, I hate this guy just because I hate him, just because he's stupid. I hate this person because I don't like him, because I don't like their hair. Forget it. I don't
Mm,
like I don't like that blonde hair, but they make a good car.
yeah.
Then you've got a lot of credibility. And right now, I don't hear a lot about how good the Teslas are. Honestly, the same kind of thing happens with Lucid. So I don't want to just be like bashing, just Tesla. It's the Lucid cars have tremendous range, but according to research, their power numbers are dramatically overstated. They're not as comfortable. There's not as much customer service, and they're relatively expensive. So you're starting to hear some of the same behavior from other, like, oh, we got self-driving. Okay, how good is your self-driving? And then they're trying to build their own software. The same situation happens with Rivian, which is kind of well regarded, but their software is really difficult to use and doesn't integrate well with like Apple or Android or things like that, which commonly is what a lot of people are carrying with their phone because they want to keep the ecosystem to themselves, not by their own admission in the several articles that they've posted. So we're running away from transparency and we're bringing everything very close. And transparency is how you're going to earn trust from people like you when it comes to
Mm.
driving that car. If you go out there and Chevy shows up, and says, "Hey, we tested our GMC Silverado, full size pickup truck, and we said it was going to go 700 miles. Turns out it goes 420 miles. We said it was going to tow 11,000 pounds. Turns out it only tows 10,000 pounds. We said it was going to seat this many people, but it seats two more. We said it
Right.
was going to, then after a while, you're like, you know what? I'm okay with it only getting 420 miles and towing 10,000 pounds because I got five people in my family and I need to seat that extra person. So you earn trust. And this is what some of the older American brands used to do and don't really do anymore. You
Yeah.
don't see a lot of, hey, we built this thing and it's not the greatest car, but it's a pretty good car. Like that's how Ford showed up with the Model A. It wasn't as good as the
Sure.
Rolls Royce. It wasn't as good as that car back then that we
Yeah,
had
but it was
all over
affordable.
Europe, but it was cheap. And he said that. He said, you can afford a Model A. Everybody can. So it come out with that honesty, and in the
Mm.
technology space, we need to do the same thing. We need to say, hey, we're working on this tech. We kind of suck at it right now. We've got three things that are working really well, but the rest of them kind of aren't. And we're
Yeah.
still going to keep working through it. And that's one of the things, here at Clarify that we keep working on is like, okay, we've got three or four projects in the fire. We want to start being more public about it. So on top of the podcast, there's going to be a lot more, public information about the things we're working on behind the scenes because we want to not have that behind the scenes. And we're not going to lose our corporate advantage, against other companies that are doing it. They're not going to steal our technology. If they are, then they should do it.
Mm.
We'll come up with a better technology, come up with something different that they can't steal. And if they can't steal that, we'll just keep
Right.
doing it. So that taking that same mentality and kind of dumping that into autonomous vehicles, like I think NVIDIA to a degree, they do that already. Like their
Mm.
chips are really good. Their design's really good. Some of their software leaves a little bit to be desired, but there's a reason why they're so far ahead in the AI space and why AMD is struggling to catch up. So they're able to charge that premium. They're able to be that partner. They're able to do those things, to be a multi-trillion dollar company. And I think that if companies partner with them and develop that kind of product, like GM's talking about doing right now, you might get a kind of bitchin' self-driving car that might do some cool stuff. And then let's test it and let's find out if it hits a mannequin
Yeah.
or if it doesn't know if a picture in front of it is, Wile E. Coyote Road. So it just runs through the picture instead of actually like stopping because there's a solid object in front of it, which is what LiDAR is supposed to do.
I think that really speaks to the idea of like the competitive market, or like if I'm not to dive into like capitalism and the free market and all that stuff, but I do think that this is a space where the government almost like should stay out of it, right? Because like especially here in California, Newsom has done a lot of things to like promote EV, right? He's done things like or electric engines, that type of thing, where he's come in and like banned small motors, those type of things, or proposed bans in small motors that are coming in the future, where I think that, especially in like what a lot of people don't realize is this is an ag state. We, believe it or not, produce a lot of food and a lot of lumber. All right, guys. And so if you actually go north of San Francisco, the number one industry is logging, right? And so the thing is that I personally believe, and I'm sure there's other people who agree with this, is like electric motors are not bad, right? They're not inherently evil or inherently bad in any way. In fact, on almost every metric, they perform better than gas, right? If
By a
you're,
lot in some
yeah,
cases.
like I grew up on a cattle ranch, as many of you know. Believe it or not, to haul cows, you need at least an F-350. All right. If you have an electric truck, they tow a lot more. And so, but my point is there are downsides when you're doing things in like a rural area or in like an ag area where maybe there aren't chargers or maybe you need to just be able to fill up, like get diesel, you have off-road diesel, like all these different things. And so I think that's where that competition kind of steps in, where it's like let the companies go to bat for their product and make it worth it, right? And so instead of having things come in and be like, oh, like you have to use these gas or these electric chainsaws now, it's like, okay, no, maybe we just like let those companies just make a great product and compete in the market for it. And now we have these, great chainsaws that can be used in a rural area, can be used in logging, all these different things where, now it's becoming more efficient. And granted, especially on large logging shows and large ranches, a lot of these things, a lot of these things are already electric. A lot of these things are becoming just because it's cheaper, right? It's cheaper to buy, electricity or produce electricity than to buy thousands of gallons of red dye diesel, right? But I guess my larger point is kind of piggybacking off of yours, where the competition is what matters, right? And
Mhm.
these things can win in the market. Like we know that they can. We know that they're like solid products coming. It's just we need to like incentivize them to make them, right? And like I think that's where a lot of the people that kind of hesitate, whether it be autonomous vehicles or EVs, all these things, they're kind of just like, okay, yeah, I just want it a little bit better, a little bit more easier fit or easier integration into my life, instead of like you being like, or not you, but like instead of someone be out there being like, all right, you guys have to use EVs now. It's like, okay, I'm down to use an EV, but like make it do the job that my gas car does, That's the type of
And
thing.
I think there's a lot of sound thought in that. I hate getting into politics because politics
Yeah.
are always a nightmare. Everybody's always gonna get mad. It's nobody's gonna agree. Everybody's gonna hate everybody else. It's, oh, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? So I don't really. I mean, amongst my friends, believe me, anybody who's listening to this, Shane knows. I will talk politics. I'll throw that door open and run out there screaming, yelling about politics all the time. But I don't want to do it in a public forum because I'm not a politician. I don't want to be. So keeping that kind of to the side, the politics to the side, we as humanity, and mostly America, honestly, kind of got drunk on gasoline for a long time. It's cheap energy. We could just grow it and refine it and, grow it. We could grow it. Like we just pull it out of the ground and then it's okay, we're going to make more gas. We're going to grow our markets. We're going to do all these crazy things. And gasoline, from a chemical standpoint, is storing a tremendous amount of energy in one little molecule. So it's not so much the internal combustion engine that we really liked. It was that gasoline could store huge energy in a very small space,
Mhm.
and we just figured out new and efficient ways to get it out.
Right.
So whereas the electric motor, like Shane, you talked about a minute ago, the electric motor is so much more efficient than the internal combustion engine. So much more torque, instant moments of torque, massively powerful, pretty heavy, but the amount of power that's being generated, it's not that heavy. But the problem is, how are we going to deliver energy to that? What are we going to do? Because we were so drunk on gas, oh, we can just, go get a gas can and do this. So we've stifled innovation in that space. We
Mhm.
haven't thought about it, where we've been innovating around gasoline for well over 100 years. So now we've been innovating around battery storage, which is a much harder nut to crack, for only about 50 years. It's the same
Right.
type of battery. We're still using chemicals. We're still storing energy the same way. But the future that I visualize in my head, that I hope companies like ours can bring to life, is where battery storage is so much more efficient that you've got an energy supply, like I was joking about my little Fusion beer can, that's this big, and you plug that into the back of your 26-inch chainsaw with a hefty electric battery in it, and that thing, man, you'll just start
Mhm.
taking trees down without even thinking about it. And if you can run that thing all day on that power pack, ain't nobody in the world going to go out and buy a gas chainsaw ever again in their whole
Right.
life. They're just going to go do it. So back to an early podcast episode, which may or may not have been destroyed because it might have been one of the ones that just went to hell. The biggest industry in the world will be energy in the
Mhm.
future. How much power can we store? How can we efficiently keep it in one spot? How can we make it clean? How can we make it cheap? How can we make it available? Now, and whether that's the Chinese who have successfully managed to ignite a fusion plant for 20 minutes or whatever they did a few days ago, or it's ITER doing the same thing, or the UN just declared that nuclear power was a clean energy source, was a
Right.
sustainable energy source. That's nukes are going to be the way to go. Like it's going to be something
Mhm.
to do. And that's looking forward. That's being progressively thinking, not the political progressive, but just we need to go forward, not backward. We need to find better ways to make
Mhm.
energy, to store energy, to deliver that energy to our vehicles. The way I don't know, I'm going to date myself, but about 10 years ago, Porsche was screwing around with their Spider prototype, which was an all electric prototype. that at that point, 10 or 15 years ago, had 1,400 horsepower and weighed nearly nothing, but it only go for about 15 minutes. You
Right.
didn't want to put a big heavy battery in it. Now, if you keep that in mind, if you found a way to put a battery in it that weighed about 500 pounds that could let it run for 400 or 500 miles and recharge relatively quickly, then every other car goes away. Nobody wants to buy anything else. You put
Well, they
that
don't
same
want
kind
to,
of
but it's still a
right,
Porsche.
right. But if you trickle that down,
Mhm.
into your Honda Civics, into your Toyota Camrys, into your Ford Mustangs, you trickle that all over the place, and then use that same technology and put that into your Silverados, into your F-350s, so that they can tow 40,000 pounds, and then they can do that for 200 miles.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, nobody wants to do anything else. So we're right back to your free market concept. But somebody needs to show up with this battery storage, energy delivery concept. And very much like we're hearing start to grow in the artificial intelligence space, what we're currently doing is not going to cut it. Most scientists
Mm.
right now are saying that we're not going to get AGI from our current understanding of artificial intelligence and our use of LLMs and our use of AI. I believe the same thing applies true in energy. We're not going to get the next energy breakthrough by making current battery designs more dense or more capable. We just need to come up with another way. Now, does that mean that something's going to fall out of somebody's brain? Is it my brain? I don't know. Probably not. My brain's got too much scrap in it falling out anyway. But there are people out there, and we've done this for decades, for generations, who are sitting there under a tree somewhere looking up at the sky, thinking to themselves, well, what if?
Mm.
And at some point, they're going to try it and they're
Right.
going to do something new and we're going to see a revolution, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see that person show up.
So before we wrap up, I feel like it's become a common theme that we like to end on a positive note. All right. Because sometimes we talk about the like dark truths of technology and all these things. But if any of, 52 people who have ever listened to our podcast want to make EVs a real thing, these are the specifications that I need. All right. These are the things that I swear to God, like these things will actually make you not just capable in cities, but they will make you a worldwide, like no matter the terrain, you can like sell cars. All right. Just for me. All right. I need to be able to have four-wheel drive in a not crazy heavy vehicle. All right. Like it can't be 7,000 pounds. It's not possible. The reason being is because we haul cattle through rough terrain in the mud and snow. And like I know a lot of you guys don't know this, but like the way tires are made now are super wide. So if you're super heavy, you sink and then you don't go anywhere. All right. And so if you have skinny tires like the old Jeeps and you're heavy and you sink, it's fine. But pick one. All right. I need to have power to power these, brand new cells Matt's talking about in the middle of nowhere. Like I'm talking no cell service. All right. Maybe there's power lines out there. There's a lot of sun usually for about half the year. The rest is rain, snow. All right. And the other one is it needs to be able to haul. Let me count 12,000, 15,000 pounds up like a 8% grade, no sweat. And it needs to be able to do that for multiple days at a time. Basically, the idea is I need to be able to haul 15 cows down a hill to market and then come back up the same hill. Okay. And so if you can accomplish these things, I will be the first one to buy your EV Silverado. All right. Those are my specifications. And I feel like that's not like a super tall order, but I'm also not a scientist. So
I mean, right now with current tech, that's pretty tall order, honestly. But
I need to get power where there is none. I need to haul more weight than any other truck. And I'd be able to get through the mud. That's all I know.
right, that's it. That's fine. That's fine. It's no big deal. All I need is basically Jesus powers. And then once
Yes,
I have
yeah.
that, it's
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
all
Catch you
right.
guys later. Bye.